I was on a business trip and left my 8-year-old daughter with my mom and sister. Then the hospital called. She's in critical condition after an allergic reaction. I said, she has no allergies. The nurse paused. Not according to your sister. When I confronted her, she said, she was getting spoiled. I needed to fix that. So I fixed everything legally. I should start from the beginning. My name is Jonah Carter. I'm a 39-year-old single father, and my daughter, Lillian, is my whole world. She's 8, smart, kind, and way too trusting for her own good. She has these big brown eyes that always light up when she's excited, which is most of the time. She loves science, space documentaries, and the color yellow. Her mother, Maya, walked out when she was just a baby. No warning, no long goodbye, just a note saying she wasn't cut out for this and a half-empty closet. I don't even think Lillian remembers her. It's been just the two of us ever since, and I've done everything in my power to give her the best life possible. I work in corporate logistics, a job that sometimes requires short business trips. I hate leaving Lillian, but when I have to, she stays with my mom, Martha. My mother has always been dependable, strict, but loving. She's 65 now, retired from her job as a schoolteacher, and has always been a big part of Lillian's life. Then there's my sister, Brielle. Brielle is complicated. She's 34, 5 years younger than me, and she has a chip on her shoulder the size of Texas. She's always been the type to blame everyone else for her problems. According to her, life dealt her a bad hand, and nothing was ever her fault. She's never held down a stable job for more than a few months, has been in and out of toxic relationships, and still lives with our mom rent-free. But despite her bitterness, I never imagined she would do what she did. It was a Wednesday morning when I left for Chicago. Just a quick 3-day trip for a conference. Boring, but necessary. I kissed Lillian on the forehead before I left and told her to be good for Grandma. She nodded eagerly, her legs swinging from the kitchen chair. I'll bring you back something cool, I promised. Like what? A surprise. She grinned. Okay, but nothing boring, Dad. I laughed. I'll do my best. I hugged my mom goodbye, told her thanks, and gave Brielle a polite nod. She barely looked up from her phone. That was normal. The trip itself was uneventful. Meetings, presentations, overpriced coffee. It was the second day, around 6:30 p.m., when my phone rang. I almost ignored it because I was reviewing notes for a dinner meeting, but something told me to answer. Is this Mr. Carter? A woman's voice asked. Yes. Who's this? This is Nurse Harper from St. David's Hospital in Austin. Your daughter, Lillian, was admitted a few hours ago due to a severe allergic reaction. She's in critical condition. My whole body went cold. Allergic reaction? No, that's not possible. She has no allergies. There was a pause. Then the nurse said something that made my stomach drop. Not according to your sister. I felt dizzy. Brielle? She told us Lillian has a peanut allergy and that she accidentally ate something contaminated. But sir, this was a large dose. It almost looked intentional. I shot out of my chair, knocking over my laptop. I'm on the next flight, I choked out. By the time I landed in Austin, Lillian was stable but unconscious. Seeing her lying there, hooked up to monitors, her small hand wrapped in medical tape, nearly broke me. She looked so tiny in that hospital bed. Mom was in the chair beside her, her face pale and streaked with tears. She looked up as I walked in. Jonah, she whispered. I could barely get the words out. What happened? She wiped her eyes, her hands trembling. Brielle gave her a peanut butter cookie. I stared at her. And why the HLL would she do that if she thought Lillian had a peanut allergy? Before she could answer, Brielle walked into the room, holding a coffee like she hadn't just nearly K-led my child. Oh, you're back, she said casually. Something inside me snapped. I stood up so fast my chair scraped against the floor. What did you do? She rolled her eyes. Relax, Jonah. It wasn't that serious. Not that serious? She almost died. My voice was shaking. Brielle scoffed. She's fine. Besides, she needed a wake-up call. You spoil her too much, Jonah. She's turning into a brat. I took a step closer, fists clenched. So your solution was to poison her? She waved a hand. Oh, don't be dramatic. I knew it wouldn't KLL her. I just wanted to teach her a little humility. Kids need to learn they can't always have their way. I stared at her, ball rising in my throat. She's 8. Brielle just shrugged. You baby her too much. She needs to toughen up. That was it. I grabbed her arm, dragging her out of the room. Jonah, what the HLL? She shrieked. Get out, I growled. You're done. You are never seeing Lillian again. She scoffed. Oh, please. What are you going to do? Call the cops. I didn't answer, but I was already planning exactly that. Lillian stayed in the hospital for 2 more days. As soon as she was stable, I went straight to the police. I had the nurse's statement, the medical records, and the hospital footage of Brielle admitting what she had done. Brielle was arrested for child endangerment and aggravated assault. She cried in court, acting like she was the victim. The judge wasn't fooled. She got 5 years. Mom begged me not to press charges. She's your sister, Jonah. Please, don't do this. I looked at her, barely able to contain my rage. She almost K-led my daughter, Mom. This isn't just a mistake. It's attempted murder. After the sentencing, I moved Lillian and me to a new city. Too many bad memories. I cut Brielle out of our lives completely. Some people say, family is family. That's bullshit. Family doesn't try to KLL your child. Brielle wanted to fix something. So I did. Lillian was still asleep when I returned to her hospital room. Her little chest rose and fell in a steady rhythm, but I could still see the paleness in her face, the way her lips had been chapped from oxygen tubes. The sight of her like that made my stomach twist. My mother sat quietly in the chair beside her, hands folded in her lap, staring at nothing. When she heard me enter, she looked up. Her face was tight, her eyes puffy. "Did you really call the police?" she asked softly. I shut the door behind me. "Yes, and I'm not sorry." She closed her eyes for a second. "Jonah, I know what Brielle did was wrong, but prison? She's still your sister." "No," I said firmly. "Sisters don't try to KLL their nieces because they think they're too spoiled. What she did wasn't just a mistake, Mom. It was evil." She flinched at my words, but I didn't care. She didn't mean to. I cut her off. "Didn't mean to? Mom, she force-fed an 8-year-old peanuts knowing it could hurt her. The nurse said it was a large amount. She sat there and watched as my daughter nearly died. And you're telling me she didn't mean to?" Mom opened her mouth, then shut it. She had nothing to say to that. The silence stretched between us until the only sound in the room was the rhythmic beeping of the monitors. After a long moment, she sighed. "I should have stopped her," she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. I looked at her sharply. "You knew?" She hesitated, then nodded. I didn't know exactly what she was going to do. But earlier that day, I heard Brielle talking to Lillian. She was telling her that kids these days are too coddled, and that parents like you ruin them by giving them everything they want. I told her to drop it, but I didn't think. She trailed off, shaking her head. I didn't think she would actually do something. I stared at her, a mixture of rage and exhaustion swirling inside me. "Why do you always make excuses for her?" Mom didn't answer right away. She just looked down at her hands. "She's my daughter, too, Jonah. And Lillian is your granddaughter. And she could have died, Mom." My voice cracked. She could have died. That broke her. Tears started rolling down her cheeks as she covered her mouth with a trembling hand. I let out a long breath and sat down in the chair beside her. I didn't want to fight anymore. I just wanted Lillian to wake up and be okay. "Mom, I need you to hear me," I said after a while. "I love you. But if you try to defend Brielle, if you let her back into your life after this, I won't let you be around Lillian anymore." Her head snapped up, eyes wide with fresh shock. "Jonah, don't do that. I mean it," I interrupted. "I'm her father. It's my job to protect her, no matter what. And if that means keeping her away from anyone who defends Brielle, then so be it." She didn't argue after that. Later that night, I sat by Lillian's bedside, holding her tiny hand in mine. I had spent the last few hours just watching her breathe, memorizing every tiny feature on her face, feeling the guilt settle deep in my chest. This was my fault. I had left her with them. I had trusted that they would keep her safe. I would never make that mistake again. A quiet knock on the door pulled me from my thoughts. I turned to see Nurse Harper peeking in. "Hey," she whispered. "You holding up okay?" I rubbed a hand over my face. "Not really." She stepped into the room, checking Lillian's monitors. "She's doing much better," she assured me. "Her oxygen levels are back to normal, and her vitals are stable." I nodded, exhaling a breath I hadn't realized I was holding. She hesitated for a second before saying, "The police came by earlier. They took my statement. They also checked the cafeteria's security footage to confirm that Brielle was the one who gave her the cookie." I swallowed. "And?" She gave me a sad smile. "And it's bad for your sister. The footage shows her handing Lillian the cookie and then standing there, watching while she ate it. The moment Lillian started having trouble breathing, Brielle just stared at her. Didn't even call for help right away." I clenched my fists so hard my nails dug into my palm. The nurse gave me a sympathetic look. "I don't usually say this, but you're doing the right thing pressing charges. Someone like that? She's dangerous." "Yeah," I muttered. "I know." She gave me a small nod and patted my shoulder before leaving. I turned back to Lillian. She was still asleep, her little fingers curled around mine. I leaned in close, pressing my forehead gently against hers. "I promise you, baby," I whispered. "She will never hurt you again." And I meant it. Lillian woke up the next morning. I had dozed off with my head resting on the edge of her bed, still holding her tiny hand in mine. I didn't realize I had drifted off until I felt her fingers move. My eyes snapped open, and I sat up immediately. She blinked at me, confused, her voice hoarse when she whispered, "Daddy?" Relief hit me so hard I almost couldn't breathe. "Hey, baby," I said softly, brushing her hair back from her forehead. "I'm right here." She tried to sit up, but winced. "Easy," I murmured, helping her adjust the bed so she could recline comfortably. "You had a big scare, but you're okay now." Her little brows furrowed. "What happened?" I swallowed the lump in my throat. I didn't want to tell her the truth, not yet. "You had a bad reaction to something you ate," I said carefully. "But the doctors took really good care of you." Her lips trembled slightly. It hurt. God. I had to look away for a second. I know, sweetheart, I whispered, squeezing her hand. I'm so sorry. She looked around the hospital room, confused. Where's Grandma? Before I could answer, my mother walked in, carrying a cup of coffee. The moment she saw Lillian awake, she gasped. Oh, baby, she cried, rushing over and cupping Lillian's face with both hands. Lillian gave her a weak smile. Hi, Grandma. Mom sniffled and kissed her forehead. You scared us so much. Lillian blinked up at her. Where's Aunt Brielle? A thick silence filled the room. Mom and I exchanged a look. I wasn't sure how much to tell her. She was still so young, too young to understand what had really happened. Mom hesitated before saying, She had to leave for a little while, sweetheart. Lillian's face scrunched in confusion. Is she mad at me? A sharp pain stabbed at my chest. No, baby. She did something really bad, and now she has to face the consequences. Lillian's fingers curled into the blanket. She said I was spoiled. My entire body went rigid. What? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Lillian sniffled. Before she gave me the cookie, she said I was spoiled. She said Daddy gives me too much and that I need to learn how to be grateful. She looked down at her hands. Did I do something wrong? Mom made a choked sound and covered her mouth. I felt rage crawl up my throat like bile. I leaned closer, taking Lillian's little face in my hands. Listen to me, baby. You did nothing wrong. Do you hear me? Nothing. Brielle was wrong. What she did was cruel and awful, and it has nothing to do with you. Her lower lip trembled, but she was really mad. I exhaled sharply, forcing myself to stay calm. Sometimes, I said, people get mad for the wrong reasons. Sometimes they hurt others because they're unhappy with themselves. But that's not your fault, okay? She nodded, but I could tell she was still trying to process everything. The doctors kept Lillian for another night just to monitor her. During that time, I met with the detective handling Brielle's case. We have more than enough evidence to proceed, he told me. The nurse's statement, security footage, and medical records all support the charges. I nodded, jaw tight. Good. He flipped through his notes. Your mother gave a statement as well. She admitted that Brielle had made comments about your parenting before, but didn't think she'd act on them. I swallowed. Is my mom in trouble? He shook his head. No, we don't have evidence that she was involved in any way, but she's definitely shaken up by all of this. I exhaled. Yeah, I figured. He studied me for a moment before saying, I've seen a lot of family cases, Mr. Carter. I just want to say you're doing the right thing. I nodded, but I didn't answer. By the time Lillian was discharged, I had made up my mind. We were leaving. Austin had too many ghosts now. Too many memories I never wanted to relive. That night, after I tucked Lillian into bed at home, I sat in the kitchen with my mother. She looked exhausted, like she had aged 10 years in the past few days. I slid a cup of tea in front of her. Mom, I said carefully, I'm moving. She looked up sharply. What? Where? I don't know yet. Maybe Dallas. Maybe somewhere out of state. Her hands clenched around her mug. Jonah, you don't have to do that. I do. I rubbed a hand down my face. I need a fresh start, Mom. And Lillian deserves to grow up somewhere where she never has to worry about this again. Her lips trembled. So you're cutting me off, too? I sighed. No, Mom. I still want you in Lillian's life. But I need to know something first. I leaned forward, looking her straight in the eye. Are you going to forgive Brielle for this? She flinched. Because if you do, I continued, I can't trust you around Lillian. Tears filled her eyes. Jonah, please. I need an answer, Mom. She was silent for a long time. Then, finally, she whispered, I choose Lillian. I let out a slow breath. Good, I murmured. Because so do I. The next few weeks were a blur of hospital follow-ups, court proceedings, and difficult conversations. I spent most of my time making sure Lillian was okay. Physically, she was recovering well, but emotionally, that was another story. She wasn't the same. At night, she had trouble sleeping. She'd wake up crying, saying her throat felt tight, even though the doctors assured me she was fine. She refused to eat anything she hadn't seen me prepare, and even then, she would pick at her food hesitantly, asking over and over, Are you sure this won't make me sick? It broke me. I had always tried to give her a safe, happy life. But now, my own sister had robbed her of that sense of security. One evening, about a month after the incident, I took Lillian to a park near our house. It was quiet, just a few other families scattered around. I sat on a bench while she played on the swings, watching her closely. She wasn't laughing the way she used to. She was still hesitant, still cautious. A little girl about her age ran up and asked, Want to play tag? Lillian hesitated before shaking her head. I don't feel like running. The girl frowned but shrugged and ran off. I sighed. I knew she wasn't just scared of running. She was scared of losing control, scared of her body betraying her again, of something bad happening if she let herself just be a kid. When she came back over to me, I gave her a small smile. You don't have to be afraid, sweetheart. She didn't look at me. What if I get sick again? I squeezed her hand. I won't let that happen. She was quiet for a moment. Then she asked something I wasn't prepared for. Will Aunt Brielle come back? I felt my entire body go stiff. I exhaled slowly. No, baby. She won't. She finally met my eyes. How do you know? Because I made sure of it. She seemed to think about that for a second, then nodded. Good. That single word, simple, but firm, hit me harder than I expected. She wasn't just scared anymore. She was angry, and I couldn't blame her. Meanwhile, Brielle's case was moving forward. She had been in county jail since her arrest, awaiting trial. Her lawyer had tried to push for bail, arguing that she was not a flight risk and had no prior criminal record. But the judge denied it, citing the overwhelming evidence against her. She had tried to call me from jail. I didn't answer. She even sent a letter, but I never opened it. I tore it up and threw it away. She had already said enough. I didn't need to hear anything else. But my mother, she struggled. Even though she had promised me that she chose Lillian, I could see the weight of it all on her. Some nights, I would hear her crying in her room. Other times, I would catch her staring at her phone like she wanted to call Brielle, but couldn't bring herself to. One night, I found her sitting in the living room, staring at an old photo album. She jumped when she saw me. I couldn't sleep, she admitted. I sat beside her. The album was open to a picture of us when we were kids, Brielle and I playing in the backyard, covered in dirt, grinning like we had just discovered treasure. I swallowed hard. I don't know where I went wrong, Mom murmured. I sighed. It's not your fault, Mom. She wiped at her eyes. Maybe I let her get away with too much. Maybe I ignored things I shouldn't have. I didn't say anything, because she wasn't wrong. Mom had always made excuses for Brielle, always brushed off her selfishness, her bitterness. She had enabled her in ways she didn't even realize. But still, she made her own choices, I said eventually. And now she has to live with them. Mom nodded, but I could tell the guilt was eating her alive. About a week later, I got a call from the prosecutor assigned to Brielle's case. We're pushing for the maximum sentence, she told me. But her lawyer is trying to negotiate a plea deal. I felt my jaw tighten. What kind of deal? If she pleads guilty, they're asking for a reduced sentence, 3 years instead of 5. I almost laughed. No, I said immediately. The prosecutor sighed. I figured you'd say that. But I have to ask, are you willing to accept any plea deal? Absolutely not. She needs to face what she did. There was a pause. Then the prosecutor said something that caught me off guard. She doesn't seem to understand how serious this is. She thinks she's the victim in all of this. My stomach twisted. Yeah, I muttered. That sounds like Brielle. I hung up feeling more exhausted than ever. The next time Lillian had a therapy session, I sat in the waiting room while she talked to the child psychologist. It had been a few weeks since I started bringing her, and at first, she hated it. She didn't want to talk about what happened. She just wanted to pretend everything was fine. But slowly, she was opening up. After the session, her therapist came out and pulled me aside. She's making progress, she said with a small smile. She told me today that she's not afraid to eat cookies anymore. I let out a breath I didn't realize I'd been holding. The therapist hesitated before adding. She also talked about her anger. I frowned. What do you mean? She said she doesn't understand why Aunt Brielle hurt her, and she's angry that she can't do anything about it. My chest tightened. What should I do? I asked. The therapist gave me a thoughtful look. Let her feel it. Let her be mad. Anger isn't always bad. It's part of healing. Just make sure she knows she's safe to feel whatever she needs to feel. I nodded slowly. That night, after dinner, Lillian looked up at me and said, Daddy, when will Aunt Brielle say she's sorry? I set down my fork. I don't know, baby, I admitted. She might never say it. She frowned. Then what happens to her? I sighed. She goes to court, and the judge decides what happens next. Lillian was quiet for a moment. Then she picked up her spoon and stabbed it into her mashed potatoes a little harder than necessary. I hope the judge makes her go away forever. I blinked. She had never said anything like that before. Why do you feel that way? I asked carefully. She shrugged, still stabbing at her food. Because bad people should go away. And she was bad to me. I reached over and covered her small hand with mine. You're right, I said softly. She was bad to you. And that's why she's facing the consequences. Lillian didn't say anything else. But that night, she slept through the night without waking up in a panic. And for the first time since the hospital, she seemed a little less scared. The trial was set for 3 months after Brielle's arrest. I spent those months focusing on Lillian, making sure she felt safe and loved. She was slowly healing, but she still had moments where I could see the fear creep in. Certain foods made her nervous, and she refused to eat anything if she wasn't sure where it came from. It led me to see her like that. Meanwhile, Brielle was stuck in county jail, awaiting trial. Her lawyer tried everything, claiming she had no malicious intent, arguing that it was just a misunderstanding. But the evidence was airtight. She had watched Lillian struggle to breathe. She had stood there and done nothing. And now she was finally going to face the consequences. The courtroom was packed on the first day. Reporters weren't allowed inside, but there was definitely media interest. Aunt Poison's niece over parenting dispute made for a HLL of a headline. Brielle sat at the defense table, wearing an orange jumpsuit. She looked awful, Her once perfectly styled hair was now dull and lifeless, and she had dark circles under her eyes. Good. She didn't look at me. She didn't even glance in my direction. But when they read the charges, child endangerment and aggravated assault, she finally reacted. Her face twisted into something between outrage and disbelief. She still didn't think she had done anything wrong. The prosecution laid out the evidence clearly. The nurse's statement, the security footage, the fact that Brielle had lied about Lillian having an allergy, it was all there, undeniable. But the most damning moment was when they played the hospital footage of Brielle talking to the nurse. Her voice rang through the courtroom. She was getting spoiled. I needed to fix that. There was an audible gasp from some people in the gallery. I felt my jaw clench as I watched her shift uncomfortably in her seat. Her own words had sealed her fate. The jury didn't take long to decide. On the third day of the trial, they came back with a guilty verdict on all charges. Brielle's lawyer tried to argue for leniency, saying she had learned her lesson and didn't mean real harm. But the judge wasn't having it. She sentenced Brielle to 10 years in prison. I felt something inside me finally unclench. It wasn't cruelty. It wasn't revenge in the traditional sense. But it was justice. Brielle had wanted to fix something. Instead, she had ruined her own life. And now, she had to sit in a prison cell and think about it for a long, long time. Lillian and I moved to Dallas a month after the trial. I got a new job, a new house, and a fresh start for both of us. Mom visited us often, but she never mentioned Brielle again. She never went to visit her in prison, never wrote her letters. It was like Brielle had erased herself from our lives. Lillian still had moments of hesitation, but slowly, she started feeling safe again. She made new friends, started playing outside more, and even asked me to bake cookies with her one night. No peanuts, she reminded me. I smiled. No peanuts, baby. I promise. She took a bite and grinned. These are way better than Aunt Brielle's cookies anyway. I laughed. That's because they were made with love, not poison. She giggled, and for the first time in a long time, she was just a happy, carefree little girl again. Some people say, family is family. That's bullshit. Family isn't about blood. It's about who truly loves and protects you. Brielle tried to break my daughter. She tried to teach her some twisted lesson. But in the end, the only person who was truly taught a lesson was her. And as far as I was concerned, that was the best revenge of all. Brielle gets exactly what she deserves, and Lillian gets to heal.